Welcome to Vision Pros, the show all about spatial computing, visionOS, and getting work done on the Apple Vision Pro. I'm Tim Chatton, host of the show. Welcome to Vision Pros. This week on Vision Pros, we're joined once again by Wes Hilliard, and we're going to be diving into visionOS 26. I installed the beta last night. Wes has been using it, I think, since the keynote, and so we're going to just dive into all that. If you'd like to support this podcast, you can do so by heading over to visionpros.fm/Patreon or by subscribing in Apple Podcasts. With that, here's my conversation with Wes. Welcome to the podcast, Wes.
Hey, Tim. I know I keep coming back here periodically, but hey, it's a big release, big announcement for Apple Vision Pro, and I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, it's been a fair bit. I'm trying to remember last time, but yeah, it's been a while, and I'm excited to kind of dive into a fairly big update with visionOS 26. It's not as big as I would have hoped we may talk about. There are some really cool things in here, but I was hoping for even more, if that makes sense. I don't know if you're the same way.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's mixed feelings. I mean, especially when you compare to the iPad and iPhone. This is a small update, not quite as small as something like tvOS, but we still got some significant improvements in places where it counts. But overall, there is some issue, and I've been writing this for Apple Insider this past week, so I've got a lot to say on the subject, so we can dive in wherever you want. There's the whole weird native apps thing. There's some cool new productivity stuff with locked windows. There's the new spatial widgets. There's a lot here.
There is, and the iPad got this big windowing revamp, right? And you would have thought maybe the Vision Pro may inherit some of that, but there's except for locking windows and doing the anchoring to surfaces with widgets. We didn't get it'd be so cool if you could have shortcuts in visionOS, open apps and tell them which area in front of your view you'd like them to open in. But currently the shortcut is still just open X app, and it just opens wherever you're looking.
Yeah, I'm not really sure how you would execute that. I mean, I guess we're starting to get more buttons in visionOS in places where there weren't before, and that's kind of adding complexity to the UI. When you look at the bottom tab now, to the left is an X and to the right is a share screen, which
I noticed that.
I want it to go away because I'm never going to share my window.
Yeah, it seems like a very big UI thing to have always there for something that I will rarely use. That seems like an interesting call by Apple to put that there.
The button on the right should be a lock button, because in order to get the lock to show up, you have to pin it to a flat surface, right?
No, not necessarily. You can, I think, tap and hold the long bar, the moving bar, and that will pull up a lock. I have been able to lock it just to places in the middle of the air before.
So you need a keyboard connected.
No. You can tap and hold with your fingers the move the window bar, that long bar, and that'll add a lock icon that you can then initiate.
I'm not seeing that. From what I'm wearing Vision Pro right now.
Yeah, mine's upstairs. But there is a way to do it. That might be it. It might be a different way, but I have done it.
Yeah, if there's a way, that's great because that's helpful. Because having to lock it to a flat surface does limit its utility. But
yes,
what the lock does, just to say, is once you've locked it to a surface, it stays there just like a spatial widget. If you restart the device, if you recenter apps, it's still in the same spot, and that's nice. That's a good feature.
Yeah, the lock thing is a super smart thing because I was like, okay, how do you manage the fact that some windows you want to not lock and have others that you want to recenter when you do recenter? And the lock button was that's how you do it. So that's how widgets stay in place, but that's also how windows can stay in place, but that's also how you have the ability to have it work the old way. And locking apps is a weird thing because it's do I want to lock this instance of Safari in this room? And then I guess when I open Safari in a different room, I'll just get a brand new window with different tabs. I guess that's kind of the thought there. Have you played around with locking certain apps and wanting different instances in different places?
Yeah, so when you lock an app, and I'm going to test this real quick. Yeah, when you lock an app and then you tap the Safari button, it just brings the lock app into the room with you.
Seriously?
Yeah, I just did it.
Oh, man.
So that's kind of silly, but I believe, um, yeah, I believe there's no actual. This gets back to the iPad thing. There's no real multitasking tool that allows you to say open new window. When you're in Safari, you can say new window.
Yeah, right.
And so I'm going to do another experiment as we sit here. So
Because you can have multiple Safari windows, of course. Yep.
Yes, so I'm going to open a new Safari window. I'm going to lock this one to a surface, if it'll recognize my wall as a surface. Okay, here we go. I'm going to move this one over here. It just brought both windows.
Interesting. Okay.
No, I'm sorry. Actually, nope, it only brought the one window. That's okay. So if you want to prepare, I guess, ahead of time and have a separate Safari window open to recall, then I guess that works technically.
Okay. You have to have multiple windows open in advance and only lock the ones you... Yeah, okay. Gotcha. Yeah.
So, a little awkward, but it's a step in the right direction. And this is beta 1. Apple refines this stuff all summer. If inside baseball, this beta is the one Apple has been running since probably about March.
Yes. These are the most polished the betas are, as far as beta 2 could be a mess, as far all we know.
Beta 2 is going to be what they've been running since WWDC, right? So when beta 2 comes out, it is fresh, it is going to be full of bugs, but it's also the best look at what we're going to have as to what September is going to look like, because this might as well be called an alpha, because beta 1's almost never representative of the final release. It's representative of what they hoped for pre-WWDC, and then as they're getting notes, as they're getting inputs from developers and users, they're rethinking some things, and when they hit submit for beta 2, they've started implementing a lot of those changes. I fully expect Liquid Glass to get walked back a little bit on iOS and macOS, but that's a different story.
Sure, yeah. Now, it's an interesting UI conundrum. Like, how do you, if you had an app locked and a user says, I want that that app in this room, I would think, like, instead, I would want, like, a UI pop-up that says, do you want a new window, or do you want me to bring that locked window into the room with you? That would be what I would prefer, I think, versus, like, yeah.
There needs to be a task management UI somewhere.
Outside of the sleep and the thing you can do, the force close apps. There needs to be something for actually managing stuff outside of that.
Well, so what you can do on iPad is right-click on an icon and say Open New Window. There's no right-click function in visionOS in that way. You can't, even with the mouse connected, you can't right-click on an app in home view and have it open.
And there's no expose.
There's no expose, and like, so at that point, it's not that big a deal though, because I think that's kind of the thing is with visionOS, especially the Windows, it is kind of all ephemeral, I guess. If that's the right way to say that word. Like, it's meant to be that way, so Apple, I don't think, sees it as that much of a hassle to reopen a window in a different room, and then you return to your office, oops, Safari's not in here anymore, either recenter or just click on the icon and have it summoned again. And it's a half a second. Now, as we just said, you can open a second window, and then I guess if you want to be really pretty with it, you can just walk around your house, decorate your walls with widgets and windows, lock them all into place, and then leave it be. But then it comes back to the same conundrum. When you open the app again next time, which locked window is it going to steal? And next time you walk into that room, you're going to have to resummon it. It's just these little pain points, I think. It's probably not even a visionOS 26 issue. I think this is going to be a future, like, visionOS 27 type thing where we're going to see more done to the multitasking.
Yeah, and it's not a huge issue, as you said, because, like, I think the widgets is the big thing. People want to set up their different rooms and not worry about having to configure that every time, because you're going to spend a lot of time doing the widgets right, and you don't want to mess with that again.
And the widgets, thankfully, are incredibly static, and they don't go anywhere. I have had clipping issues where once I've hung a widget, and the next time I put on Vision Pro, they don't always resettle exactly. Like, they're a centimeter behind the wall, and then they start flickering because they're inside of an object instead of on top of it. That's a beta bug, clearly, but
Yeah, the
they're
other beta
very.
bug I had last night was when the Windows system crashed. The widgets came back, but they were in their smaller size class
Mm.
and weren't the size I left them at.
And I feel like the widgets can still be improved. There's something interesting about the widgets. They're cool. I actually wrote a preview piece before WWDC, and I got spatial widgets 98% right. The only thing that I didn't get was I had hoped that Apple would give us objects to place with it. So I wanted a flat surface to place inside of immersive views. I wanted a flat wall surface and a flat desk surface, so a vertical and a horizontal space to place objects and widgets on. So when I'm fully immersed, I still have a dedicated flat surface to put things on. And
Right, because you can't really do widgets when you're fully immersed, right? It's purely in that AR mode, right?
When you turn on any immersion, the widgets go behind the immersion.
Yeah.
And I also just feel like I'm going to reference something I referenced on Apple Insider Podcast a lot. There's a video game called Heavy Rain, and a character goes into an XR AR mode with his glasses, and he's on Mars, but he has a desk. He has a desk. That's all I want.
Yeah.
I'm sitting at a desk right now, and if I go fully immersed, I no longer have a desk. My arms are just floating in empty space on a flat surface. Let me place a desk there, and then that way, if I have a little widget that I want to put on that flat surface, I can. Or, it would help do a few other things like give me grabbers to put on a keyboard.
Right.
And map
Or
the desk.
or if you're actually sitting at a desk, put a virtual desk there because you
Yeah.
have a keyboard that's sitting somewhere, and like that all makes sense actually.
Yeah, map it to the desk. And again, this gets into future OS releases. I still think this is a target point. The thing I did predict correctly, though, was the very clear trajectory for spatial widgets, because we've seen this demoed time and time again. My specific example is the Microsoft HoloLens. That demo showed the user walking around their home with pinned widgets everywhere, weather clocks and calendars, TV screens, and now we have that with Apple Vision Pro. It's just an obvious use case for XR AR.
Yeah.
And clearly where we're going to go with what's eventually going to be Apple glasses and a cheaper or lighter Apple Vision Pro. So
Now, third-party apps are already appearing, and I'll tell you, it took me like 5 minutes to figure out how the heck do I put widgets on a visionOS? Because what it is, there's a widgets app, but for me, that's on page like 20 of my app screen, at the very, very last page, which I never go to. I'll be putting a bunch of apps into a folder that I don't touch as often, so I'll have like maybe 3 or 4 app screens soon, but that'll be a 5-hour process, I'm sure, as I've played around with the folder creation system here. But there's a widgets app, and that's where you go. And I've noticed things like Agenda and some other third-party apps are there, but Widgetsmith is not there. A lot of apps I know of widgets don't show there. Now, I know from my time on iPad OS, you have to like use the app a fair bit, and then it might show up in your widgets. Is there some voodoo magic that you've noticed with some third-party apps that you know of widgets but aren't showing up there yet?
no, this I think has to do with widget classes of how the developer has it all set up. So I don't think there's any way to get anything connected, but there is a pattern here. Currently, because visionOS and visionOS 2 does not support widgets, visionOS apps have no widgets. Apple,
Right. In iPad apps, you install like Agenda and Albums as another good one that has widgets.
Yeah, so if you have iPad compatible apps with widgets, that's what widgets are going to
Oh, and
surface.
Widgetsmith is actually is that a Vision? That is a visionOS app, right? Yeah,
that is a
that's right.
visionOS
Okay.
app. So that's the difference. That's why in Apple's iconography and widgets is broken too, because clock is shown as a visionOS app because it's a circle, but clock on visionOS is not a visionOS app. So
Yes.
we can dive into that topic here a little bit, but just to note, like, yes, the widgets in the widgets app is a mixture of Apple's native apps compatible apps, and any compatible app that you've installed from iPad that has widgets. So I have a Slack widget, I have a Trello widget, and they work the same way as iPhone widgets. They're the same square iconography, and they inset into the wall, or they can actually float freely. And if a widget is set as a free floating window, it can be set next to your other windows, even in immersive mode. So they don't automatically disappear just because you're immersed. They disappear when they're hooked to a wall.
Gotcha. Because most widgets I've experienced, they need to be on an anchored surface to actually use them,
to
right?
show anything.
Yeah.
Well, let me test this. So yeah, it's a good system. I like the idea, and I'm especially excited for apps like yeah. So right now I'm getting the snap to surface dialog on battery widget, but if I open the Slack widget, still snap to surface. Okay, so I lied. It has to be snap to surface in order to show data. That's interesting, but I like this system because it means apps that I have on my device already, like I have this home app, home UI, that's going to be amazing for widgets, because now I'll be able to have a permanent widget attached to a light bulb.
Yes.
And
Yeah,
then
wherever your lamps are, you can just put it above that lamp kind of thing.
Yeah, and just like other widgets, you should be able to hopefully click and drag to adjust brightness without opening an app. So
Ceilings, does it work with the ceiling? I tried that and I wasn't getting great results snapping to a ceiling.
okay, so I'm going to try that now. So give me 1 second, because I was just thinking the same thing as you were saying that. But no, but the way I would do it in that case, if it was a ceiling bulb or something, or like let's say it's a ceiling light or a fan, I would treat it more like a light switch. And honestly, I would mount it where the physical light switch is in real life.
And I wasn't using it at a desk, but is it only looking for walls? Like you couldn't, could you have a widget horizontal on your desk? Is it just only vertical planes? Is that what it's limiting there?
This is a vertical plane system, but what's funny, now that you mentioned the desk, it does snap to your monitor.
Right, because it's a vertical plane.
Yeah, which is really funny because I've started playing around with what if I pin these windows to the monitor?
Or a window. It would work on a window, right?
Yeah, windows. Yeah, I mean, because it's still a flat surface, even if it's transparent, your Vision Pro is using LiDAR, so it's going to see the physical object. But I was going to mention before we got sidetracked, the interesting thing about spatial widgets, and the same thing we've noticed with windows floating in space, the visionOS capture of a space is not representative of real life. It's very close in the brightest of spaces, but once you go one bit dimmer, you introduce noise. And so the darker or dimmer a room is, the noisier the room is, the more the widgets stand out because they are perfect and always well lit and always these like exact colored they don't match the environment. I don't think it, because the first response to that was, what if Apple colored these in a way and noised them up in a way that made them match the environment camera, but then you're making the information worse and less accessible. So while it would increase the immersion, I think it would go against the idea of a widget, which is to provide information. I'm hoping that future iterations of Vision Pro get us that much closer to perfect realization of the real world, and that widgets will blend in that much more. Because
you can imagine a 3D widget that lives on your desk.
Yeah, or the clock widget. Like that, I have one hanging above my door, and as long as it's a perfectly well lit room, like if I open my window and let sunlight in and it's just really bright, it's almost indistinguishable. I have these dark wood panel walls, so everything's dim anyway. It's a very bad example, but if I had to imagine if I was in a actual room that could be brightly lit, it would actually look fairly close to a real clock. The best widget that I found so far is the music widget, which is a poster.
So nice. And if you're sitting on a chair where the wall's close enough for you to like reach out and touch it, you can just tap the widget to play and pause that album, which is so nice.
Or you can also look and pinch.
You can. Yep. And that's how you'll
And-
interact with most widgets, just look and pinch. But if you're close enough where you have widgets like within reach, you can just tap them for some widgets that are interactive.
And if you look and pinch at a calendar widget, it opens the calendar app, which
Yep.
further emphasizes our need for native apps. But one more thing before,
Yes, it does.
one more thing before we get to native apps, because that's a discussion. I was going to say something, and now I've lost it.
I was going to also say the weather app is severely lacking. It's just the current weather outside versus I want like what's tomorrow's weather? I want like forecasting a bit more.
Yeah, it needs more widgets. Right now, it's kind of a window, like it's pretending to like let you see the sun outside or whatever.
Yeah.
It would be. I'm still waiting for someone to make a like a Back to the Future style window widget kind of thing where you can like turn on different places in the world. What if you could get a live stream of London or something and just attach it to your wall and just see a specific street outside all the time when you look out that window? The panorama widget is really excellent. Like if you do that as a window view, it looks like you can look around out the window, and as you move around the room, the view changes because you have all this panorama to look around at.
Yeah.
I was just in the mountains yesterday, so I took a bunch of huge panoramas at the top of this mountain to try out for the window view, so that should be interesting. But
yeah, and there's an album thing where you can just like rotate through an album. I really wish they would add shared album support because most of my albums are in shared albums. So I'd need to make some new albums, I guess. But
I really need to take more advantage of albums and customization in photos. But my brain has returned what I was going to get at. So another thing about widgets and in general that I really like, and something I think is increased with visionOS 26, I may be wrong, but obfuscation seems to be tenfold better. And what I mean by that is if you place the poster on the wall and there is a lamp between you and the poster, the lamp obfuscates that part of the poster. The poster isn't sitting in front of the lamp.
right.
If you leave I need to test this because I'm gonna say it. I'm assuming because of the room detection feature and that they've vastly improved room detection. That's how widgets work. The visionOS now knows which room you're in. That's how it knows where to place widgets. If you leave that room, everything in that room is gone. I might be wrong about Windows, but previously I do know that if you walked across your house and you turned around and looked at your office like 6 walls away, you would still see your windows floating there. I don't think that's
which
the
was
case
it was somewhat helpful if you're trying to like see if you're doing wiring, like where in the room do I need to cut that hole?
Sure,
Just leave a window there.
Someone joked on ATP, I believe, if anyone listens to the Accidental Tech podcast, someone was trying to drill a hole from downstairs to upstairs, and they said, just put on your Vision Pro and place a window on top of where you're going to drill the hole, and you can find it.
Gets you close enough, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, that might be gone, and that's probably for the best because it knows what you're in. As far the photo widgets are great. Spatial photos, they're very cool to have as a widget. It depends really where you're standing or sitting for how good that looks, I've noticed.
If you're so in my space, I have windows with a curtain, and the curtain stands out ever so slightly from the wall. So a lot of the time, the widgets want to set where the curtain is and not where the wall is. Or since it's using LiDAR, sometimes it'll catch like a cable going down the wall, and that'll be the spacer. And a lot of times my widgets end up ever so slightly away from the wall. So if you get to the side of it, it looks like it's floating in space a little bit. That, again, could be a tracking issue. My room is dim because of the dark paneling. There's a lot of reasons for that. But generally speaking, the widgets stay in place. They look like they're attached to the wall. The inset widgets are especially nice. And I can only see this improving. This is beta 1, and they already look so good. But we keep dancing around it. I want to talk about native apps.
Sure, yeah. Before we move on to that, any other apps or widgets that you're really enjoying? I mean, the clock I think is beautiful, and there's a lot of options there. Any other widgets you want to just point out before we move on?
So I think that this will lead well into the next discussion. No, actually, I've been the ones I'm using primarily are I have a calendar hanging in my room,
Mm-hmm.
the 30-day calendar because I
Yep.
just like having that. I place it where my calendar usually goes in my office, which is fun. I use the weather widget. I put that over a window. I have a photo stack widget that's rotating through different spatial photos of pets that I have.
Mm-hmm.
Um, the uh, the music, of course. The also it's a poster, but also it rotates through. And if you pin it to a playlist, it lists like the songs and the minutes.
Oh,
It looks
nice.
like
Yeah,
a
because I've
set.
just done individual albums, but are you able to do multiple albums, or is it just like an album or a playlist?
It's a one button thing,
Okay.
but like I set it to alt control, and it did this interesting thing where the poster art is the art of the current playing song, um, and then it switches every time there's a new song. But then
Mm-hmm.
below it is kind of like a set list. So if you've ever seen a music poster, you'll see below it in tiny characters like 600 words of it's this artist, this artist, this artist, this artist. Well, they did that in the poster art, and then below that is a runtime, how many songs are added, and it's just part of the poster, but it looks like a concert poster. It's really cool. Just very smartly done. So those are my favorites. But this so segueing in, podcasts does not have any of these functions. Podcast widget is just the iPhone podcast widget with a little
Yeah.
play button. It doesn't really work because it's the tap surface is too small. It's the iPad widget. It's not specially made for Vision Pro, and it gets back
Mm-hmm.
to
And
where are the native.
there's no home widget. I don't think, even though widgets on iOS there are widgets for iOS home.
Yes, like, and that's an odd omission. But again, it gets back to I think this is
Certain
beta
widget
1 stuff.
size classes or certain widget types aren't supported. Is that what you think?
Yeah, so home. I think this is complicated because podcast has the play button.
Mm-hmm.
I don't. And I think all it does in this case is launch the podcast.
But
app
interactive
and hit
widgets
play.
aren't a thing because there are reminder widgets,
Yes.
but they're not the interactive ones. I don't think.
No, there. So I'm gonna try to interact with it because I have a reminders widget right here with clickable buttons. So I've pinned it to a surface. It is loading. I'm going to hit a button. Oh, nope, it clicked the button. So it's not even that either. I think Apple just specifically chose not to include the home app for
Oh,
whatever
that's
reason.
great. Which the
Yeah.
home app, I so want those widgets. So that'll be a third party opportunity.
Yeah, I want to pin buttons everywhere, right?
Mhm.
That makes total sense. Sure, we're not living in the Vision Pro constantly, but it's a nice to
When
have.
it's on, it'd be nice
yeah.
to have. Yeah.
Yeah.
So native apps, we didn't get a single new native app. Nothing.
Wait, so yes, but you've given me an idea, and I have to say it or else I'll forget.
Okay.
Because I want to mention something similar to this later, so this will connect. I think that Apple needs to start preparing people more for spatial, and since these headsets are so expensive, we need more opportunities to interact with spatial things on iPhone. And I'm getting the feeling they're doing this because you look at iPhone right now, and guess what it has? Spatial scenes. Well, we can talk about those in a minute from photos.
Mm-hmm.
That's an excellent way to introduce people to the idea of adding 3D elements. Now, what if in a future OS, Apple allowed us to go into an AR view, and we could look around the room and see the pinned spatial widgets from Vision Pro and interact with them through the iPhone or iPad screen?
I wouldn't. I don't think that. It reminds me
It
of the
wouldn't be-
old days of like you're looking through
Yes.
an iPad to play with Legos. Like I don't want to
Yeah.
ever do that.
It would not be useful in any sense. I'm not saying that, but I think it would be a fun demo, the same way Memoji are demo. Right?
Yeah,
No one
yeah.
uses Memoji. But it's a demo of the fact that Face ID's sensors are so good it can capture those expressions. I think that if we give people the opportunity to go into an AR view, just call it, give people the visionOS app and then have it embedded in there somewhere to say, would you like trying adding widgets to your home? And
Yeah, it'd be a cool demo and like
yeah, and then when you buy the Vision Pro, the widgets are already there. You know what I mean? Like just kind of another entry point.
And we have shared experiences. I would love a way to tag a widget in the hit the I button or something. Enable this as a shared widget for my family group. and then
Well,
the calendar would be shared and put in the same place for all members of the family, kind of thing.
see, Apple needs to hire us because this is where you get into you open this spatial view app inside of the Vision Pro app, and you see the spatial widgets. But if someone is currently wearing a Vision Pro playing a game, now you can see the window in the game that they're playing in spatial reality. Like, imagine if they're playing Beat Saber, if that ever comes to the platform, and the notes are flying at them, and you can hold up your phone and see in real time them actually playing. And that would give you the ability too to record the spatial environment from that view. Look, we're just giving Apple all the ideas. My check can be mailed to my home address, but native apps because we keep leaving it.
Well, the widget idea I gave to the Portal developer, and I think he's going to implement this, is I told them how cool it would be have a PlayStation trophy case as a widget in your home, and it looks like it's something doable, and that he'll be looking into adding, which would be
Absolutely.
neat.
That's cool.
But yeah, native apps. We didn't get a single new one. We have a kind of fake phone app within the People tab now. I'm not sure if you noticed this, where you can actually call phone. You can call your missed calls. I don't think a way to get an actual dial pad, but there's a way to call people now. But that's not a native app. That's separate.
It's a recents tab inside of People. It does now. So the People tab has never been useful to me for Vision Pro. It's always been empty, except for like 2 heads. That's probably just evidence of how often I call people. But now there's a recents button, and it is completely filled in with all of my recents down to the recents button. So like it feels much more useful now.
Mm-hmm. And there's a keyboard, like a dial pad thing within a phone call. So if you're calling back technical support, you can go through a phone tree.
And what's interesting is the recents tab, when you open it, it is basically the phone view, the unified phone view, but it's still not the iPad version. So it's the old contact photo and no contact posters, which is interesting. Just another half step forward, but at least it's here.
Yep. But yep, where are the native? No native podcast app. No native.
I had to check. So I've been keeping track of this since the start. Apple announced visionOS and Apple Vision Pro WWDC 2023. So 2 Junes ago, right? That native app list has been the same from that point to today. Nothing has ever been changed from compatible to native. There have been new native apps added, of course, but no conversions since that initial announcement. And that is perplexing to me because the platform itself seems to be doing fine. I know it's not, the greatest seller in the world, and there's a lot of discussion around that in developer relations, but Apple has not made any moves to change any of these native apps, and we are entering now what is the 3rd year where none of that has changed, and that seems to be an issue.
Like, how is it that the iWork team just did Keynote then stopped? Like, because they obviously did the work for Keynote. Well, what's going on there?
And what's crazy is Apple, that first WWDC when they introduced visionOS, and then the second one a couple of months after its release, both cases, if I remember correctly, Apple's just like, look how easy it is. We're giving you all these APIs. We're giving you all these tools. It's not one button click like it was with converting iPad to Mac with Catalyst, but it was pretty close from their emphasis. They're just like, it's so simple. Your apps already work on the platform. You just need to enable this setting so you can get the window Chrome, and then you adjust it for what you need. Because what visionOS is, the most bare bones, because I know not everyone listening has one, so I'm going to say it is the window Chrome itself. So an app, think of an iPad. The app is the content in the center, right? That is the app. And in visionOS, that hasn't changed. The center bit, generally speaking, on a social media app, in Safari, whatever you're interacting with is still that center bit. What makes it a visionOS app is the buttons and toggles and menus inside of that center bit, sure, but then you have window Chrome on the outside. Instead of a attached menu bar or attached modal or instead of having all of the modals and interactions and pop-ups being centered inside of the central pane, it can now exist outside of it as floating elements. And that is what makes it a visionOS native app. It also becomes infinitely adjustable, resizable, and it also becomes much easier to hit tap targets, because tap targets become different styles of buttons. But those three elements are basically what makes it a visionOS app. So generally speaking, just looking at a native, I'm going to look at the calendar. All Apple has to do here, and I know I'm not trying to say, oh, it's so easy, I'm a developer. I understand it is complex to do anything in code, but from what I'm looking at here, what they would do, the central calendar portion would become the window environment. The top toolbar would become a transparent toolbar, and the sidebar, where you manage your notifications and your upcoming list and calendars, would become a floating external sidebar. That's the whole UI, right? And then you would tweak it. Then you would tweak and optimize from there, of course. And I
like they could get fancy, but they don't need to start fancy. They can start with just a basic visionOS app, and then from there, you add your 3D models of a calendar that's some crazy stuff if you want to. But.
Yeah, in my basic understanding of this, because again, I'm not a coder, is that particular doing is actually very simple, because all you're doing, unless you have a lot of custom buttons, which could be true, but this is Apple, so they're not using any custom buttons. It's all of their own stuff. It's a very simple drag and drop process, basically, of turn this from Apple's 2D buttons to Apple's 3D buttons, generally speaking. Now, for something like drafts, lots of custom icons, lots of custom buttons. I understand why Agile Tortoise still hasn't converted this into a visionOS native app. It would be a lot of work on his part, and he's still working on features for the app. And so he would have to stop releasing new features, which is what pays the bills, and focus on a platform where no one's giving him new money.
Sure.
And so I totally understand it from that point of view. But for Apple, I don't get it.
Yeah. No, it's baffling.
I have a lot I can say about native apps, because people have asked. So I had a comment. I wrote a whole piece on this, because basically the idea was Apple not introducing any new native apps is a bad sign for the platform. Not really like, oh no, it's doomed. I'm not a doomer, but it's more like Apple isn't taking control the way it usually does and saying, this is the best podcast app you can make. Go make one better than ours. This is our opinionated example of what a news app looks like. This is our opinionated example of a calendar app. They're just not doing that. And I feel like developers are at a loss in multiple ways for the platform, but they also just don't have a lot of examples to work from. And so in that article, someone commented, but what's the point of a 3D calendar app? And it's like, I already explained what makes a native app native. It's not necessarily 3D.
Fantastical is a visionOS native app, and it's great. It's surprising Apple hasn't, tried to match them.
Yeah, and on top of that, like, it's not just the 3D elements, it is additional abilities. And the Widgets app does bridge the gap, and I will give them that kudos.
Yep. And you're able to do different Windows size classes versus just an iPad app that's stuck at, that aspect ratio.
If for now, over the next year, Apple releases proper spatial widgets for some of their compatible apps, fine. But really their goal should be native, because
they haven't improved iPad compatibility. Like, iPads, as we know, with this new Windows system, they can be any size. But on visionOS, it's just portrait or landscape.
Very forcefully limited.
Yes.
And I'm looking at an iPhone app right now, and it's even more limited. And they come across as gigantic UI-wise. Like, you resize an iPhone app next to a visionOS app, and all the UI Chrome is huge, because it doesn't understand what it's doing in this space. And some apps just break in this compatibility mode because it's actually not that compatible. But I have ideas. Like, there's ways this could work, right? Shortcuts. Imagine if Apple created a spatial shortcuts app where it's more of a what are those called, mind map, but it's a 3D mind map where you can drag in actions into attach it to points and then expand it from there, go in, type, right? Like there's ways that you could make this work. The books app should just let me place physical books as objects into a space, and then I can open it and see a automatically archived page to a specific section of a book, or maybe it's opens to my now reading page of a book and you get a better spatial experience. Not that I'm going to read books in visionOS, it's just there's ways to have some fun with this, take advantage of the platform, and show people this is possible. I mean, obviously reminders is simple. Reminders should just like do what it does. Let me attach a reminder to a thing I need to remember when I look at it, right?
Totally.
Attach a reminder to the fridge of the grocery list that I can constantly update. And then when this gets interesting, since I'm wearing Vision Pro, let me, while I'm putting away groceries with this stupid heavy headset on, I know I'm talking more future. I'm talking about more future stuff now, but imagine a future AR Apple headset that's lighter and easier to wear, and you have it on already. But imagine you're putting away groceries and it just catches the barcode as you put it in, and so it can see what it is, and it's like, you put milk in the fridge on this day,
or
right?
recognizes, hey, those are bananas.
Yeah, or like if you don't, and it automatically generates a reminder of like, hey, if you don't need a banana soon, it's gonna rot.
Sure.
Like,
yeah.
It's just proactive intelligence, but like we're introducing vision to our computing beyond what iPhone already offers, because yes, we have a camera, but it's not always looking. We're about to get to the point where we have something on that is always looking, and the rumors say Apple's going to start competing in this space starting late next year, 2026, with a somewhat dumbed down idea of Apple Glass, because Apple Glass is the full experience. Transparent AR glasses, future stuff like decade down the line. But what we're expecting next year is something closer to Meta Ray-Bans with attached sensors, but not really a UI element. There could be with projectors, but hard to say what they're going to do in that space. We still have a long way to go before we get there.
Yeah, probably a decade or so until we get Apple's realization of this for glasses.
But in any case, it just, visionOS is a platform. It goes well beyond Apple Vision Pro. It just happens to be the first product, and it's not the best-selling product. It is expensive, but that doesn't mean Apple shouldn't be pushing really hard. And my biggest hope for the platform is what we just saw at WWDC, and that is liquid glass and that material being used in everything, and their emphasis on this is the future, and this is what we're aiming for, right? That's so much more than what Meta did, because if everyone has forgotten, when Meta was still Facebook, as the parent company was still called Facebook, they decided we're going to become the metaverse company, and they changed their name to Meta, and they announced Horizon Worlds, where you were going to buy real estate in a virtual property as a 3D avatar with no legs. And of course, it was the biggest flop in recent tech history. Like it was they sunk billions of dollars into this project. It's gone nowhere. And the name change now makes no sense because Meta has now shifted to AI. They're not even really, like, I know Horizon Worlds is still getting updates or whatever. It's not a thing. It's not a thing.
Sure.
And it's never going to be a thing, I don't think. But that was silly. They had nothing to show for it. They just put all their money into this basket. Whereas Apple, they didn't change their name, but they came out and said visionOS is the future. And then 2 years later, they said, here's all of our operating systems now inspired by visionOS. I think that's a clear indication that they're not going to just drop this platform.
Right. Yeah. Now, one thing Vision Pro is gaining is the Sense controller support from PSVR 2.
Yes.
I have these as part of my PSVR 2. I love my PSVR 2. Great headset for gaming on your PS5. Weirdly, I can't replace those controllers if they break. I need to ask Sony, call them up. Hey, my controller's broken. Please send me one because I would like to use my headset. You still can't buy them standalone or get backup pairs, which is just baffling to me. So at some point this fall, I'd imagine I'll finally be able to get that. Simultaneously, Apple announced it's going to be easier to pair Sony controllers to multiple devices. I wonder why that could be. So maybe it'll be easier not just for my DualSense, but also my Sense controllers to pair those with the Vision Pro and my PS5, which that would be miraculous. And it's kind of wild that Sony simultaneously WWDC had a press release saying, "Oh, in the coming soon is the ability to pair your DualSense with multiple devices, to repair it." And people I listen to the gaming podcast, they're like, "This is an odd thing to be just out of the blue announced." It's like, if you're following Apple, it's simultaneous with that. It's kind of interesting. So I wonder if Sense controllers will gain that ability too. But
I think it's
yep. Go ahead.
It's an interesting idea, and I think how it's going to work, because generally how this works is a keyboard will have 3 Bluetooth radios. Sony's not going to add Bluetooth radios to a software update.
Profiles would be the thing, right? Where you can hit a button, like hold
yes.
down the home button, some weird combination. I think Xbox has a way to you hold down a button and it changes the profile.
Well, so what you do, I believe, is right now the operation to put it in pairing mode is hold down the share button and PlayStation button until it starts blinking. What they'll probably do is have you hold down the share button and X for PS5, share button and circle for this device, and just store those Bluetooth profiles.
That'd be nice, because I have a dedicated DualSense for my Vision Pro that I just have an extra DualSense, and because it's such a pain in the butt to repair these controllers, yeah.
And these devices have memory, and so I'm surprised it took this long to get to this point, because it's just a text code that's kilobytes in length of like Bluetooth radio, look for this signal.
Yeah. But I wonder for those that have PS5s, if when they see the pricing of what standalone DualSense or Sense controllers will be like, it's like, oh, maybe I should wait till the holidays when it's $350 for the headset and controllers, just get the whole headset so I have that plus the controllers. I think
could help Sony.
Yeah, because I can't see these being less than $150, more likely $200 for this pair of controllers.
You still need a PlayStation 5 to get
or a PC,
the headset, or a PC. So the standalone controllers today, if you go on eBay, they're being sold for somewhere around $80-$90 each.
Yeah, and if you look at Meta controllers, those aren't cheap either. I think it's $150 for a pair.
And I think Sony would go a similar route. They're not going to charge what they cost. At this point, they're going to try to just recoup some of their losses from the PSVR 2, because that did not sell well.
You don't think they're going to try to make a profit on the controllers, as Sony likes to do these days?
$200 at most.
Yeah, at most. But 150 is probably likely, just like Metas are.
170, yeah. Whatever the case, I already have a pair. I bought PSVR 2, and the only thing I've ever done with it is play Beat Saber.
Oh man, Gran Turismo.
That's fine with me.
Wes, you need to be driving in some Gran Turismo. That's some good stuff.
I've turned on Gran Turismo and played it in Vision Pro. It's just, I just like Beat Saber. I just really
okay. No, it's great. Beat Saber's great.
Yep. But I've definitely tested other things. It's just I keep going back to that game.
How is the process of these Sense controllers, pairing them to Vision Pro? Then, if you want to bring them back to PS5, is it a total pain in the butt?
Connect to a cable. Press the PlayStation button.
Oh, that's right. There's a USB-C, so you just hook it up and hit a button. So it's not that big of a deal. And then I guess with Vision Pro, you just hold the sharing and PlayStation button to get in the pairing mode. So the Vision Pro is the more pain in the butt of the two to pair it to, I guess.
I had trouble getting it to recognize it, but eventually both connected. They show up as PlayStation controller left and right or whatever, and they're fine. Right now, nothing uses them.
Yep, there's no games that support them. You can navigate the UI kind of like you can a DualSense controller. Like if those that don't know, if you have a DualSense hooked up, you can use your joystick to scroll window views and stuff like that.
You can and this is interesting because it completely replaces your hand. So your hand is gone.
Right.
If you're holding it, because it disappears the minute you pick it up. You don't have to unpair the controller. You can just put the controller down and your hand reappears.
Oh,
and
interesting.
Yeah. And so if you have the lanyard on, you can just let go, let it drop, and your hand reappears. Pick up the controller, and your hand disappears. But then if you look and hit the trigger, you can look and click like you would pinch.
Oh, nice.
It's actually a little bit more precise than pinching. because obviously when you're pinching, you're moving your whole hand, and sometimes
Mm-hmm.
tracking doesn't catch it. So this is actually a little bit of an accessibility thing. I
Yeah, if
feel
it's
like
pitch black too, you could use it under the blanket or something maybe.
I feel like there would just be ways to you because you can pair just one, and then use the joystick to scroll and the trigger to click, and that's actually a very good experience on
Mm-hmm.
Vision OS. But yeah, that's all it does right now. If you do a DualSense controller, you can actually do the pinch gesture with the X button, not the
Yeah,
trigger.
I've noticed that. Yep.
But yeah, that's all you can do. I've opened some games, and because your hands are gone, that's it. That there's no hands, and
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't replace the pinch gesture. It's just gone. And so I load up Job Simulator, and I can't do anything. So I think this is just one of those. The APIs have to be enabled, which
Mm-hmm.
sadly means we're not going to see anything until either there's two things that can happen. Test flights, of course. So today, a game could update in the test flight with these APIs, and as long as you're on the test flight, you can run it and play it. You just have to have access to that test flight. And getting test flights for games, let me tell you, nigh on impossible. You have to have a connection to the company.
Totally. Yep.
Yeah. Like there's a Minecraft test flight that's out there, but it's been full for about 20 years now. So, um,
Oh,
then
Minecraft
there,
for Vision Pro.
no.
Oh,
Just
for just
Minecraft.
iOS or whatever. Gotcha.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's still no Minecraft on Vision Pro, and that is a sin against humanity.
Yes.
Um, so then there's the other option of you don't necessarily have to wait for Vision OS 26 to release. Apple has this period beforehand, so probably about the first week of September or so, they're going to open up developer access for uploading new APIs. They still won't be able to say this update provides support for Vision OS 26 for whatever
No.
reason,
No.
but they are able to target the APIs before the release. So, end of July, I'm sorry, end of August ish, some games might start seeing controller support without mentioning it because they're not allowed
Right.
to. But we could start seeing that transition towards the end of August. So I'm excited. It's not
Mm-hmm.
that far away. And I did want to mention it while we're here. Apple didn't make any game announcements for Vision OS during the
No, there
keynote.
is pass through now of controllers, including like the DualSense. So if you're in playing
Nice.
with Portal, the Portal app, and you're in the fully immersive mode, you can now see your controller, which has the light bar sync and stuff. So it's kind of nifty with that.
And you can see your iPhone as well, which
Yes.
is nice.
So those are the two new pass through things when you're in immersion.
Still no third-party keyboards, and you can't pin the little keyboard predictive text thing because I would love to pin that somewhere. And because now every time you type in a text field, it still appears in the exact wrong spot where you don't want it.
Yeah.
You have to move it.
They
But
mentioned something about accessibility with better typing, and the most I could
still haven't
find,
checked that.
the most I can find is if you search for typing in the settings app, it brings you to accessibility in Zoom for some like better typing thing, but it's not an option you can select anywhere. So maybe in a future beta, something related to Zoom and typing is in there somewhere.
So typing feedback. Yeah. So I wanted to mention the gaming thing. So they didn't announce any new games, but I think they're leaving some space because they did announce the controller support.
Mm-hmm. And there's the Games app for iOS.
Yes, and there's no games app on Vision OS, if in case anyone's wondering. But I wonder if we're going to see some more significant announcements later this year because of controller support, because this opens up a whole library. Um,
Yeah, they should be pitching VR developers on their platform.
Capcom, Resident Evil, like it's
Yep.
the obvious.
Yeah, I mean currently, the versions on PSVR 2, I think Sony funded, so they would have issues with those versions probably. But and also
right.
what is the horsepower? I doubt the horsepower is at all in the same class as a PS5 as far as some of the bigger games in the VR.
This is the tough thing because you're right. Running a game on an iPad is way different from running it in full virtual. But
That's why Beat Saber and games like that are the natural candidate that are less power hungry.
this is the weird thing though because we also have hardware like Apple has a lot of hardware built in. The reason why a lot of VR is so intensive is because it needs a lot of onboard processing for tracking and a lot of that information. That's already happening in visionOS. So all they have to do is render the game. And even if they have to render it at a slightly less than ideal resolution.
But you also need frame rate that's very fast, otherwise you'll get motion sickness.
Right. So maybe it's tricky, and this is one of those. This is first generation issues, and that's why maybe the rumors of an M5 model coming out in 2026 is possible. I still think at that point. So I want to point out that since visionOS came out, I've been saying 2026 is the earliest we would get one, and everyone's like, "Oh, 2 years, that's too long." No, here we are, halfway through 2025, and there's still zero word. They could sneak one out in like October, and it go on sale by December, but it's just I don't know. But anyway, M5 should get announced this fall, and I could see a visionOS or a Vision Pro 2. This would be the actual successor, not a cheaper model. I still think if there's going to be a cheaper model announced, it'll be announced alongside the Vision Pro 2, so we'll get both at once. But yes, the M5 model should be out next year-ish. It could be another year. I don't think it'll be that long, but sometime next year, we'll get that M5, and that gives us a lot in gaming. Hardware-accelerated ray tracing was introduced in the M3. Hardware-accelerated mesh shading, I believe, is also M3, but like it gets better with M4. So M5 should also introduce a new host of things that are probably going to be good for gaming, and especially since Apple's learned a lot about visionOS as a platform, I have a feeling we're going to see some custom stuff in the M5 and the R2, is it R2 chip, so for tracking. So this could be a really interesting platform, and as much as my wallet will yell at me, I am beginning the preparations for a possible $4,000 purchase in the near future. But yes, gaming is going to be rough right now, but I'm with you. Just get Beat Saber. Beat Saber and Super Hot would be good.
Interesting if they can get Beat Saber, because Beat Saber announced they're pulling out of PS4 and PS5, and it's owned by Meta, and I wonder if Meta's like, we're bringing this, we're not, and they hate Apple. They hate Apple. Even though they gave them, so I don't see it happening.
They like money.
Synth Riders will be the win, because Synth Riders is so nice in PS.
It is good.
And PSVR 2, that is such a cool experience where you're riding the synth. It sucks in Vision Pro with the hand tracking, but once that's controller support, that'll be I think a major win. Yes, haptics.
Beat Saber's become a service game.
It has, but they're pulling out a PlayStation, which is baffling.
Well, there's because 8 people bought a PSVR.
No. There's a bigger user support there, and I think I think it's more than you say. They make money there clearly because it's one of the best-selling games there, and it's got better sales than I think it's been let on. But it's not just because I think it's. They announced Meta announced there's a Xbox like partnered version coming out, so there's been theories like, is Microsoft like trying to get it off PlayStation through that partnership, and Meta's owned by Beat Saber and all that,
So I wonder what the estimated sales are in PSVR 2, because this is one of those weird things.
But also know that people that buy PSVR 2s, they buy a lot of games and software, and they're buying up the DLC. Like, they're engaged users. So that's another point of note.
It's just one of those questions. I don't know the market well enough to even have an estimate, but let's see. Sony says in May 2023 of selling around 600,000 units. And it seems that since then, the sales probably haven't gone up that much.
I think with the price, with the drops and the sales, they've been like the number one on Amazon during those sales and moved a lot of units.
Right, but it's still like, I don't know that they've even breached 1 million units is what I'm saying.
I think they have, but I know.
We're in that. Sorry, like, I'm not trying to debate or anything. It's just, we're in that range of about 1 million units.
But it's not a huge seller. I mean, I think probably. Well, I think they're getting more sales than they would on Vision Pro.
The point I'm trying to get at is, if they're around 1 million units after, I don't remember when it came out, but we're encroaching on 4 years. 1 million units, and Vision Pro, I know it's not the best seller in the world, but we do know that they sold at least maybe 500,000 units in the first year. And I know that it's ground to a halt since because there's not been any new hardware. So
in PS4 2 was February 2023, so we're just after 2 years.
Oh, I'm sorry, 23. So it's much more recent than I realized. But okay, so they're probably around 1 million units after approximately 2 years, and then Vision Pro, they seem to be selling at almost the same rate, weirdly enough, even though the price is that
right.
astronomically different.
Yeah.
But my point being is Vision Pro has a future as a platform, and PSVR 2 Sony has basically given up on, more or less.
Sort of, but they are including PSVR 2 games in their state of plays and stuff. I think they're probably funding third parties in some capacity.
Those were already in development, right? Because it takes years to make.
But it's not a wild hit, and gaming so far in Vision Pro is yet to be determined. We'll see what Apple does with it.
Yeah, the point I'm trying to get at is that, especially if a Vision Pro 2 and a cheaper model come out in 2026, we're going to blow past it immediately.
Sure.
The PSVR 2 life sales.
Sure.
Right now, I'd be willing to say yes, Vision Pro is probably sold less than PSVR 2 by probably a couple 100,000 units. But once that second model and that cheaper model releases, let's say 2026, we're going to blow past double of what PSVR 2 sales is. And so my point is,
but also,
I think
if the cheaper Apple headset doesn't include VR controllers, they're still not going to have the user base that actually has controller support.
Sure. You'd still have to buy a separate unit, but that, like you said with PSVR 2, people with the device want to take advantage of everything they can, and what's $200 more after 4,000?
Yeah, but what I'm saying is a lot of users I don't think will buy the controllers. And it's a chicken and an egg of do developers
problem.
Put the work into it if they can't actually depend on the users having the controllers to use it, right?
Because just because there's 1 million Vision Pros in the wild doesn't mean there's 1 million people with controllers in the wild. It's
like Apple TV. It's like Apple TV's powerful, but like not many are paired with gaming controllers because it's not bundled in the box.
Well, like I'm just want to finish my thought.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to say that Meta might have the ability, because there's no reason why Beat Saber wouldn't work without controllers. It just, the haptic feedback.
Yeah, it'd suck. It'd be like Synth Riders and just not be a good experience.
But it could promote people to buy the controllers. But
for sure.
Meta doesn't need to make money off of controllers. They just need to make money off of Beat Saber, and people with Vision Pro clearly have money to blow, and introducing Beat Saber with a limited song pack and then charging $10 a pack for the other 50 songs.
I know, it's a good business.
And if you have 1 million plus, like if you have double the PSVR 2 numbers in the wild, you're probably going to recoup and make way more profit for very little effort on Meta's part. I understand that Meta and Apple have an adversarial relationship.
A little bit,
but that has never stopped. Like, Instagram is one of the most popular apps on the planet. Facebook, right? Like, it may be adversarial, but it's lucrative.
Yeah.
I can't see them just withholding games forever just to be mean about it. Look at Fortnite. They begged to come back to iPhone, and I know iPhone's a different entity.
It is, yeah. I also think
I wouldn't give up hope.
I also think the Vision Pro, it's not a gaming headset. It's way too heavy. I don't want to get sweaty in that thing. It's just not the right form factor for me, at least. Like, the next generations where they get lighter, that'll be when it actually becomes something more appealing. But I don't want that bouncing around. Like, it needs, I can't be Beat Saber, you're like ducking, I believe, in some instances. Am I remembering that?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I don't.
Squatting.
Yeah, squatting. I don't want to be doing that in the Vision Pro, quite honestly.
I'm with you. I get madly sweaty in Vision in PSVR 2, and I keep those little disinfecting cleaner cloths just to clean up after, because it's a workout. If you play the game the way it's meant to be played, you can cheat like in the Wii, where you kind of just flick your wrist and kind of barely move around. But if you really play the way you're supposed to play, it can be a full body, like, just cardio.
Yeah, totally.
Workout. And I don't know that I would want to sweat that much in Vision Pro. Maybe that's why some of these more intensive games haven't come out for it. But again, I'm speaking more to the future of the platform as it gets lighter and the hardware gets better. But I think we've hit most of the major points of visionOS 26.
The last thing I just want to
Personas.
Yeah, Personas. So that was the last thing I want to touch on before we wrap it up. Yeah, because you've done your Persona. In your article, I love that we have the proof of record from our podcast back when we recorded it of what our original personas looked like. And
It's so rough.
It's so rough.
So bad.
So how is it this new one? It looks great in just the flat images, but how is it when you're wearing it and all that?
We have ears now.
Oh, it's a high definition ear, I must say.
It's funny. I was wearing an AirPod when I mapped my persona, so I don't think they're actually using our ears.
Oh, I see.
I think
yeah.
Well, it kind of looks like my ear. You know what? Maybe it's just kind of disfigured a little bit because I had an AirPod in. But it is mapping ears in. My hair is still kind of a amorphous blob.
You have a beard that has not posed a problem with your face mouth tracking, has it?
No. So Mike, is that right? It's
Mike Hurley, and then someone
Hurley.
is having an issue now with his beard that didn't in past personas.
Right.
Which podcast was that? I forget.
All I know about is Mike Hurley.
Yeah.
So he's Relay FM connected and those guys. So he has an issue because he has a fairly thick mustache. He lets his grow out, so it's over the lip.
So it's probably actually a mustache thing versus a beard thing.
Yeah, I mean, because they just reference it as a beard.
Yeah.
But
Mike should just get rid of his mustache. I mean, let's be real.
The issue is, so it's actually kind of funny right now. If I cover or if I put my hand underneath the Vision Pro, like where the exhaust fans are, it covers those sensors and it causes my mouth to disappear in the persona, like almost like it's being censored. It's because it can no longer track the mouth. But from what Mike's showing though, is it's not the sensors being obscured. It's that it's not seeing motion, and he has kind of this weird no mouth thing going on. And it could be the beard too. It could be a combination of just the thick beard and the mustache going all the way to his lips. Basically, it's just the geography of his face, the topography, and that is causing Vision Pro to not know what to do with that information.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's an easy solve here.
No.
I don't think this is just one of those things. It's so like we run into these issues a lot in edge cases and technology,
like tattoos on
If
the
you
Apple
have
Watch.
Tattoos, or if you have darker skin, sometimes you're not going to get as accurate of readings. There's going to be issues. There's always going to be edge cases, and sometimes the limitation is the technology. It's not like Apple said, all right, everyone with a beard can't use Vision Pro. We're just going to block them. I don't have that issue because I keep my mustache very trim. I don't like eating my facial hair. So it's just one of those things. If you have a particularly bushy beard, at least right now, it's the mouth tracking isn't there.
No Santa Claus cannot wear the Vision Pro and have a good persona.
It seems to be really, I don't know how much information it's able to grab, but this thing like understands my teeth structure. It sees my gum line. It sees my tongue. Like, the detail of those particular things is odd to me, because like how much information is it getting while it's doing its scan? Obviously you take the Vision Pro off to do the initial scan, but the level of detail in the facial structure, it's much better. It's still visible as what you'd call like a video game-esque.
I would love
mesh.
an API for like the NBA 2K team to import my persona into their game. That'd be so fun.
Right. I've made references to like video game face generator things because it reminds me of that.
It's so much better
still
though than what I can create in those games, for me at least.
Yeah, I still think we should be able to select our hairstyle. Like scan us in and it'd be like, is this your hair? And then like swipe through a couple of choices and then have it just
right, because your hair may also get messed up wearing the headset.
Yeah, and the biggest issue is because they're using a static scan of your hair and beard instead of
it's not
having
moving.
There's no live rendering occurring, so that hair is permanently stuck. So if they took it a quarter step forward and gave us the ability to select more of a video game-esque 3D hairstyle that represents our hairstyle to put on top of the persona, hopefully not looking like a weird anime wig or something, just like actually making it look correct.
But it should, because especially with longer hair, it doesn't. It needs to move, right? Like with short hair like yours, it's less bad.
Yeah.
But if you're like someone with long hair, it moves when you shake your head.
I was very surprised that they chose a woman for the initial demo because it showcased very clearly that her hair is still glued to the side of her head and her shoulders.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a part of her shirt,
right.
more or less. And that's not the face is the most important part, but the parts that make it unreal pull you out of the simulation. Right now, I have full confidence that if I went to a Zoom meeting with 10 other people and I was just a square in the corner, it would take a while for people to notice, if they ever noticed, that it wasn't me. It looks like I'm kind of, because Zoom already has those background effects.
Yeah, and you're a small like thing in a Zoom call, like, unless you're like made full screen or whatever.
It feels like we're at the point now where it's good enough for those kinds of situations for a larger FaceTime call. But if someone was talking to you and they had you on their iPad full screen, it'd be very clear that it's not you.
Mm-hmm.
So we're in that in-between state. But the fact that it's progressed at all, I'm just happy because, again, Apple's clearly working on this. And now I'm going to go full circle. So I mentioned before bringing spatial widgets to a spatial mode on iPhone, letting people enter shared experiences from the iPhone and iPad as well, because let people participate who don't have the $3,000, $4,000 headset. This one I think would be really interesting. So we already have Memoji and Animoji, but what if you could import or even create with the limited LiDAR and stuff on iPhone, it's really good. It's just not as good as Vision Pro. Let us build and use personas on iPhone and iPad as well, and Mac, because then we could store this digital persona and activate it when we needed it. Like, I just rolled out of bed, there's a meeting in 5 minutes, I don't have time to do my hair and makeup or whatever, and it's just available as a toggle, and you still put yourself in front of your iPhone or iPad the same way, so you're still getting full Face ID scanning, so they can map your face to it. It's not going to be as good at mapping as Vision Pro, but it's still getting the job done. And I think that would introduce yet another aspect of spatial computing to other devices that let people have a little taste. And it would just be cool. It's a useful tool.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Apple could be working towards that.
Yeah, that'd be super neat. And it's getting to the point where it's getting almost good enough to do that, I think. And the progress they made is just incredible, how quickly they've done this.
Yeah, clearly that the effort of their teams, and I couldn't tell you how big their team is. It feels like sometimes Vision Pro is like 4 people, but they're clearly putting in some work. The redesign didn't touch Vision Pro other than the icons getting a different design. I like the new Photos icon. And some of the liquid glass, because visionOS was made of a transparent material before, but it wasn't necessarily liquid glass. But now that is represented more clearly in visionOS in some ways, and I think that's going to amplify as time goes on.
Oh, I also must say, I love the new, you flip your hand around and click in your kind of command center. You're able to get to control center. You're able to get to search on the first screen. You don't have to go click into, because before there was like control center and then a thing into control center where search was. It's all like at the front now and much more accessible.
Yeah, they've refined control center with every visionOS update so far, and this one is nice. I like that I can also access spatial environments. There's a one button click for toggling between light and dark.
Mm-hmm.
You can also tap on Mount Hood and adjust the volumes for the spatial environment and the general audio. Lots of fun stuff. The only thing that I think they need to include here is better control for toggling AirPod connections, stuff like that. But
yeah.
Otherwise, pretty solid. I'm happy with it.
How has Mac Virtual Display been for you with this beta?
I had to restart both of my devices to have it appear for the podcast, and that seems to be a recurring thing.
Yeah, I've heard it's a bit rocky. I haven't tried it yet myself.
Yeah, it's working well. Messages got that update. That also came to visionOS. You can add backgrounds. I added a background to a couple of chats to test, and on visionOS, it is a 3D effect. The
Very
background
cool.
is The background is separated on a different plane from the text.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, the backgrounds are pretty cool. They have like effects and stuff with like water and stuff almost, and yeah.
I haven't found anything else in particular. I noticed that
Find My is still lacking, right? If you go in messages and hit the person, it won't have their location, I'm guessing, right? Which is so annoying.
Yeah, still no Find My, none of that information. There's also Files got an update on iPad and Mac that lets you color folders and add icons. That is not in visionOS.
Baffling. You'd think that just syncs across the system, and it's this Files app from iPad. I mean, it's a native app actually. Never mind. Yeah.
Yeah, and what's funny is the tags are there because I started using tags. I'd never used them before, so I can see the colored tags. But for a while, the icons were broken, and they were just wire grid placeholders while it kind of figured out what was going on, I guess. This is one of those things where it'll come later, whether it's later in 26 or in 27.
Yeah, it has to be there because it just syncs across the system. Even if you don't create them on visionOS, they should show there.
Yeah, and so that whole
and then
is gone.
Spatial scene versus 3D spatial photo. It's weird. They're both there, it seems. Like I can create a spatial photo and also a spatial scene, and they're different. Like one's more 3D than the other, it appears.
Scene, so this is the difference I've discovered. I've been playing around with this a lot. This is the same on iPhone and iPad and Vision Pro. Spatial photos are always spatial photos. They're 3D. So if you do a 3D spatial conversion from Vision Pro, which is a separate menu item.
Yeah, separate.
All right.
I thought they'd combine them into one thing, but no.
No, so what happens is if you go into Photos, what used to be in the top right corner, there's an ellipsis, and then there's a Photos button with a, what is that, a hexagon.
Yeah.
So there's a hexagon-shaped photo button. You click that. Used to, it would do a spatial photo conversion, and now forever across every platform that is a spatial photo, and when you wear Vision Pro, it is in 3D. Now, spatial photo is in the ellipsis menu.
Mm-hmm.
You click on create spatial photo. That cube icon, used to be what was in the top right corner. Now it's a hexagon. The hexagon icon, which is also on iPhone and iPad, is a spatial scene. You click that, and it converts anything you're looking at, anything at all. It appears on every photo, does a conversion into its best estimate of a spatial scene where it separates the foreground and background and adds a 3D depth effect, whether you're moving your iPhone or looking around in Vision Pro. That is always temporary. It does not save as a spatial scene. The minute you leave and come back, it's gone and you have to recreate the spatial scene. That is the difference.
And I very much prefer the spatial photo versus the scene when I'm wearing Vision Pro, at least. Like it's better.
Actually, so right now swiping through, the scenes are still there. I can't see, this is tough. It could be a beta issue, so I'm not fully sure on where this lands. I can turn off the spatial scene, of course, but I can't remember. I'm gonna close Photos. I think it does go away, or I might be wrong. Maybe it does stick.
Do you have a preference for scene versus photo? Because they are different.
Okay, so it looks like the scene is sticking. I'm going to try opening that photo on my iPhone real quick. So it's tough. Different things get different results. I think the depth effect of the scene is better. It's more natural, whereas the spatial photo 3D effect is good. It has always been good, but it is aggressive.
Yeah, it's definitely more 3D in your face, right?
Yeah, it's but so like for my cat though, like sometimes it takes depth information that doesn't seem should be there, and different aspects get blown out of proportion. Like its neck is longer than it should be, right? So like it's a really fantastic feature. I love turning on spatial scenes. This is good for the window widgets that you can use for photos that let you kind of look around. But if you notice, if you turn on a spatial scene, this is true on iPhone as well, it's not like it's generating the information behind the subject. It's a blur. So if you look behind the subject, like get to the extreme edge of the effect, it's empty space. What I'm hoping for in the future is Apple starts filling that space in programmatically using AI. And that would make it a much better experience.
Yeah, for sure. Well, anything else on visionOS 26 for now?
Let's see. I'm pulling up, unless my photos haven't synced, which is totally a possibility. Let's see. I'm pulling up that photo. It looks like it did not carry over from visionOS. So maybe it could be a per platform. This is a beta thing. So
Yeah.
it could be per platform. It could be non-permanent. It's hard to say. More experiments in the future. But your question was if I have a favorite?
Well, do you prefer the photos or the
sorry.
scenes? And I think we already covered that they're just different for different
No.
photos. They do different effects, and
You asked something at the
Well,
end
yeah.
there.
Anything else on visionOS 26 before we wrap it up?
Not that I'm aware of. I like the pass-through for the phone. I wish we got better keyboard support. There's still a wish list a mile long for what they should be doing in visionOS, and I think now that we've gotten everything we could ever dream of in iPadOS, just teasing your other podcast, I think visionOS is going to be that next platform of, can it be a computer alternative? Can it replace your workflows? What are you doing there? I mean, obviously, we're recording this today. I'm recording it on a Mac for reasons we'll discuss in iPad Pros at some point.
There's no local capture. There's no local capture option for visionOS, which is interesting.
Can't record from the visionOS microphones, which Apple, I think, still claims is studio quality. They're using that everywhere now. Studio quality. But in any case, it's interesting. I don't necessarily. I do wear my Vision Pro during podcasts. I'm wearing it now, but I don't know that I would want, unless I had audio input or a USB interface.
Yeah, the next Vision Pro needs some kind of I/O to plug stuff in.
Absolutely. Like I need the battery to basically become a docking point where I just sit down and just slap it into this little, like, think of the iPod dock, right? Or like from back in the day that holds it vertically. Let me just slap the battery in there and then it become attached to whatever peripheral.
Yeah, Thunderbolt hub should be able to plug into that battery pack.
Absolutely. But lots of, again, it was a smaller release, and look at us talking for an hour and 20 minutes about a smaller release. I still think there's a lot to dig through, and like with every release announced at WWDC, we've only scratched the surface. What's truly going to be fascinating is what happens in the fall with the developers and what they do with there's a lot of new APIs. I didn't watch State of the Union. I haven't actually dove into visionOS's APIs, but my understanding is there's more, and there's more developers can do. These spatial widgets in particular could be very interesting, and I feel like, especially with Apple Intelligence APIs combined with that, we're going to start seeing some really interesting stuff, even in visionOS, and that's what to look for. And yeah, I mean, this is great. There's a lot you can do now in visionOS. The folders is a big game changer. I can now just put all of my games in a folder.
Yes.
Who would have guessed how useful that is? Right? No new environments.
Except for Jupiter.
Is there a Jupiter?
It's not in the beta.
Oh, see, I was so busy during the keynote, and I haven't gone back to rewatch it yet.
Yeah, it's a cool looking one, but not in the beta yet.
Yeah.
But we just got a single environment, but it looks like a cool one. Yeah.
I remember Jupiter now. I guess that means we're gonna have 2 pages in the environment, so Apple get to work.
Yeah, you need to fill up that second page. Yeah.
Yeah. What? 15 more environments.
Sure. Yeah.
Let's go. Yeah. Let's do it. All right. Well, yeah. I'm good. There's nothing really else to say. There's obviously betas. Beta 2 could completely upend everything, and they. It's hard to say what they're going to do here. Maybe we'll get some native apps. Who knows? They could trick us.
Oh, yeah. They could add native apps in the beta cycle, which would be very exciting. So, well, thank you, Wes, for your time today. This has been a great chat, and really appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem. Glad to always stop by.
Well, that's been a conversation with Wes all about visionOS 26. Make sure to follow his work over at Apple Insider, and I'll link to his social media accounts, Blue Sky and Mastodon, in the show notes. Once again, if you'd like to support the podcast, you can do so over at visionpros.fm/Patreon or by subscribing in Apple Podcasts. With that, I'll talk with everyone again real soon.